Hi, I'm Justin Smith, and you're on the record with the News Reporter. My guest today is Marc Murphy, the president and CEO of Boys and Girls Homes of North Carolina. Marc, I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always a great opportunity to talk to you and spread the word about what we're doing at Boys and Girls Homes.
So you've got a lot going on, and we want to focus on just some of the new developments.
Yeah.
So one of those, this time of year, everybody's looking ahead to back to school, or at least if you have kids my age, it's all about the countdown is on. And things are going to look a little different this year at Boys and Girls Homes. First of all, some people out there might not even understand or realize that you guys operate a public charter school.
We do.
At Boys and Girls Homes.
It's the Thomas Academy, and it's a wonderful small classroom design program that originally was designed to help the children on our campus to get caught up in their academics. But as we started to offer it, we really realized that there's students all over the community who'd benefit from smaller classroom size, from teachers who have some specialization with children who might be alternative kind of learners. And it's another way that the kids on our campus can really feel a part of the Columbus County community.
And this year, you are expanding the grades that you're going to be serving, right? And so tell us about that and what is driving that expansion.
Yeah, we're actually very excited to be able to say that starting this fall, I guess we're in August, we will have 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. We already have students all the way up to 12th grade. But we haven't had elementary school age children before. And the reason that we went to that is that literally last summer, a kid walked up to me on campus, and they all call me Mr. Mark on campus, and said, Mr. Mark, why can't I go to Thomas Academy with my older sister? And I looked at him and said, well, you're not old enough. We only have middle schoolers and high schoolers. And he said, I would really love to be in school with her. And that got us thinking about the fact that we could expand so that every kid on our campus could go to the same school. A lot of kids on our campus do have older brothers and sisters, and we've noticed that when we keep siblings together, even in the classroom, that helps to reduce their stress. They can focus more on their education, and I think at the same time have a lot more fun. And then we thought, well, why not open that up for the entire community? Since we already have great success with really a majority of our students are Columbus County residents in the community rather than just the children on our campus.
And we've had the expansion of school choice in North Carolina in recent years, and I think that maybe makes it confusing for some people to kind of tell the difference between what's what. So what you guys are operating, it's not a private school. North Carolina does have the opportunity scholarships where you can get some state money to go to a private school. What you operate is a public charter school, right?
It is. Yep, so, literally open for everybody. We've got a majority of our teachers are certified teachers. Another benefit that really helps us is that we can really get kids in the classroom immediately. A lot of the kids that we serve might be behind academically, and one of the things as being a part of the public school system really is some federal mandates that we get kids in right away. And because our kids on campus come from more of a foster care background, there's actually a lot of federal laws that protect their education. And so what we found is that's sometimes difficult for our larger schools in the community to be able to do. And so literally if a child gets placed today, we can enroll them in school tomorrow and go ahead and catch them up as opposed to having to wait a week or two. But then in addition to that, we have so many kids that their families have come to us from the community and said, my kid focuses better in a small classroom. You all have trades. We have wood shop and a welding shop and auto shop. We have a wonderful partnership with the community college. They've been phenomenal over at Southeastern in having 5 days a week. We've got different trades classes going on. And so we found that a lot of students are excited about that. And then another benefit that we have is any child that graduates from Thomas Academy, if they enroll in a community college or four-year college, we have scholarships for them. 100% of our graduates can get a scholarship from us when they graduate. And again, that's a unique thing that we can do as a small public charter school that's under this larger umbrella of Boys and Girls Homes.
And so this show is going to be coming out in late July, early August. Do you still have slots available for the public? how would they get more information about that?
Yeah, we absolutely have slots open. Our school can hold about 117 children. We typically hover right around the 80 and 90 youth range. And right now with our elementary school kids, we do have, I believe, 7 kids have enrolled already in our elementary school from the community. I think a 5th grader enrolled yesterday. And so we have plenty of spots open in our elementary school. But we also have openings in our middle school and our high school. And if you go to our campus, you'll see that we've got our high school building that's a standalone. And then you go across the parking lot, and there is our middle school and our elementary school in a building. So we have ways to separate the different age groups. We just dedicated, and you were there, we just dedicated a brand new playground last week that's specifically for our elementary school kids to have a place to play that's separate than some of the older kids. But we have plenty of openings. And we would love to see more people in the community learn about this sort of well-kept secret on our campus.
One of the things that's striking is that feet from the school is an emergency shelter, essentially, for children. And I was there for the rededication of that several weeks ago. Can you tell us what happens there, the Solomon Assessment Center?
Yeah, that is a huge we have been busy. There's a huge program that we have just reinvigorated. It actually started, and I was part of its start back over 20 years ago on the Boys and Girls Homes campus. And back then, one of the biggest needs in North Carolina was emergency placements for kids who've been abused and neglected. Well, 20-some years later, that is still the biggest need in North Carolina as far as child welfare goes. North Carolina took custody of about 15,000 kids, or had them in care just last year in North Carolina. Our own county, and I've got my little cheat sheet here, Columbus County had custody at some point in time with 144 youth. So kids coming into care is unfortunately a reality because of the prevalence of abuse and neglect. And while Child Protective Services works really hard to protect these kids and bring them into their custody, it's hard for them to keep up with the demand of where do these kids go. And so I'm very glad that, we have just in the last 2 weeks reopened the Solomon Assessment Center, the first half. So 10 beds just opened. We're already at 80% full, so 8 kids have been placed already. And that is a way where kids can safely recover from abuse and neglect, while we also provide them clinical services. We can make sure they get their physicals done. We can make sure their dentals, that their educational needs are met. But we also do a lot of assessing to see where do they need to go next. Because it's temporary. These kids need a little bit of a direction. Just because they've come into care doesn't always mean that we, Boys and Girls Homes, or even Departments of Social Services, know what they need. So we have to assess it. So I've got a team of experts in there, clinicians, specially trained what we call teaching parents who work with the kids. And they will assess, see what the kids need. Do they need more mental health services? Do they need some physical or educational services? And once we assess that, we can seamlessly move them into one of our group homes on campus, maybe into one of our foster homes in the community. Or if they need a higher level of care, we can work to help find those services somewhere else in the region. And so it really is a 90-day shelter. We say that the minute that kids go in there, we're actually working on their plans for where they go next. Because hopefully that is the first move. And the next move is more of a permanent move to either reunite, get into one of our group homes or foster homes, or maybe even find an adoptive home, because we also have adoption families.
So at this emergency shelter, a kid may be taken from a home, law enforcement, DSS involved, and then just a matter of hours, they find themselves at the Solomon Assessment Center?
Yeah, our program had been closed for some renovations, and over the years it had been utilized for a variety of different things, but we really wanted to get back to the big need. There are a lot of kids in North Carolina that when they're taken into custody, if there's not a bed for them somewhere, Department of Social Services may have to have them sleep in an office. And of course that's not helpful for DSS, that's not helpful for children, and it's not healthy for anybody. So we really do immediately bring them in. We've got these wonderful gift baskets already made up that have hygiene products, simple toys. We've got listening devices so they can listen to music and relax. We get them in a bright, colorful bedroom, and we have staff that are awake 24 hours, at all hours if there's a need. We can take a child in, or if they're struggling at night, we can help them. But yeah, we get them settled in. We help them, feel valued and loved, and let them know that we're here to help them. We ask them a lot of questions of what do they need, what are they looking for, and that way we can get their voice in the situation. One of the things we talk about at Boys and Girls Homes is I don't think there's a single kid there that volunteered to come live on our campus. They didn't have a choice when they experienced abuse or neglect in their life. They didn't get a choice when Child Protective Services came in and interviewed them and maybe moved them to a relative or brought them to court or moved them to another home. And they certainly didn't get to pick where they were with us. And so the minute kids get there, we try to make sure that in knowing that they've had so much taken from them, that we can start to give them things, a space to call their own, a plan. We can start to immediately give them guidance. One of the rules we have at Boys and Girls Homes with our staff is that when you have kids on campus, our first focus is to catch them being good. And that basically means these kids are so used to not being cared for or being blamed for things that if a kid does anything correct, we praise it, we celebrate it. We also hold them accountable if there's something they do that isn't in line with their best interests or in some of the rules that we have. But we really try to create an environment that's fun, that's safe, that has structure, that's predictable, but also moves kids to wherever they need to go to next. And the Solemn Assessment Center being reopened has really kind of completed the whole milieu of services for us. So from beginning to even adoption or reunification, we now have services that can help kids.
And to that point, I think some people in Columbus County have sort of this outdated vision of Boys and Girls Homes, focusing more on the long-term residential aspect of what y'all do. But we've talked about other services already. We've talked about Thomas Academy, the charter school. We've talked about the emergency shelter. You also have a child advocacy center that's not located at Lake Waccamaw. It's not on your campus, but it provides important services to Columbus County and surrounding areas. For people who haven't heard of that, what happens at that child advocacy center?
Yeah, that is another program that we're very proud of. The Child Advocacy Center, we call it Carolyn's Kaleidoscope Child Advocacy Center. It's here in the Whiteville area. And really what that does is it helps us to kind of fulfill this fundamental belief we have that no child should have to testify in court in front of the person who harmed them. And so child advocacy centers, there's actually a national model, and we're nationally accredited, that really makes it so that we do what we call forensic interviews in our spaces right there. We've got a beautiful, colorful, kid-friendly room. It's just kind of like you and me. It's just a kid and one of our forensic interviewers. We sit face-to-face, and we just ask them questions that are specially trained, our staff are specially trained to ask. And the reason we call it a forensic interview is because it's admissible in court. Now, often in another room over there, we might have behind a video screen departments of social service workers, law enforcement, sometimes educators, often the district attorney's office is there. But there's just a small camera in our room where we interview, and the child knows about it. They know they're being recorded. And then we ask what the story is, but in a way that can elicit the information we need so that law enforcement can convict the people who've harmed Columbus County's kids. Last year, 14 adults were arrested thanks to our work, and 7 convicted who had physically and sexually harmed kids. But we also serve Bladen County and Robeson County as well. And we had 204 kids, individual kids we served last year through this program right here in Whiteville. And you think about that, before we existed, that had to be farmed out a few counties away, and a lot of times transportation is a barrier for people to tell their story. So we record it. If there is a need for a forensic, like medical, physical, we do that on site as well with our medical provider, which is also that physical medical evidence of harm to a child. And our local district attorney actually told us that we were a game changer when we came to town. And it's one of our proudest programs out of many proud programs, but it's also one that's underfunded. You had covered recently that we had gone up to Washington, D.C. I've never been to Washington, D.C. to do the politic game before, but I had a great experience. I talked to 8 or 9 different congressional offices about what we're doing just from North and South Carolina. We talked about funding that's needed for the Child Advocacy Center and how we're underfunded. Currently, we have to have substantial donations to cover the costs. It costs a little bit over, and I've got my information here, but it's a little bit over $7,000 for us to do these full services. That also includes an advocate that goes to court with the family and the child and will do the entire process, which can take years sometime. We'll have an advocate that regularly touches base, sees what other services are needed, and keeps saying to that family, let's do this, what can we support you? We will get you to the finish line in convicting those who've harmed you and your kids. So it's an amazing service, but because it's underfunded, we've been going for some specific bills to replenish the funds. It's called the Victims of Crime Act is where the funds come from. Those have had a 42% decrease in the last year, and that's on top of 6 years of decreases.
So what kind of response did you get when you met with those congressional staffers? Because on the face of it, you would think, oh, well, this is the kind of program that everybody can get behind.
Yep. Well, I will say every office we talked to agreed this is an important service that needs to be funded and something should be done. And what's great is we talked to congressional members, and right after our visit to D.C., 3 of them signed on to this bill as a co-sponsor and actually carried it across the threshold, if you will, to get enough co-sponsors for it to be passed in the House. Our most recent, and I think the news reporter has something to do with this because you did put in an article just a week or so ago saying that we had talked to Congressman Rouser and that he had yet signed on. Well, 2 days ago, he signed on to this bill. And now we have more than enough votes for it to pass in the House once it gets to that level. The Senate is where we're still working. I was actually in a meeting remotely with a senator in Iowa who is like a gatekeeper for the Senate version of this bill. And we were talking about what the holdup is. And so they're very interested in seeing what they can do to push this through as well. Because if we get it passed in the Senate and the House, then we will get this funding for child advocacy centers all over, not just North Carolina, but the country.
So you guys have so much going on at Boys and Girls Homes. I hope that you'll come back, on a fairly regular basis and update us about it. But in our final few minutes today, what else are we going to be hearing from Boys and Girls Homes in the coming months or even the year ahead?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that you'll hear in the coming months is that our Kiwanis Cottage, which is one of our cottages that's been closed for about 3 years, that holds 8 youth. We are just getting ready to start the renovation of that through Kiwanians all over North and South Carolina. They are now raising money. They have a matching fund that they're halfway to meeting. And we should start construction soon. So that means 8 more kids who are somewhere out there who need our help, who need safety and a haven from abuse and neglect, will be getting another place to live on our campus. That will bring us to record numbers of kids placed on our campus that we haven't seen in many years. Right now I have about 42 kids on campus, and even that is almost double the number of kids we had on campus a year ago. So hopefully it'll be more cutting the ribbons for a newly renovated cottage. On top of that, we're also expanding our home-based services in a program called Success Coach. So with that, we've got specially trained staff who actually go into the community, go into the homes of families who are struggling, and coach them and teach them skills. So hopefully those kids don't have to be removed in the first place. So as that starts taking off, I'd love to spend some time just talking about that and how important it is that we get to the problem before a kid gets removed.
Yeah, so it's some of that work that people driving on Flemington Avenue and looking over at Boys and Girls Homes would have no idea about, right? And so that, I think, is the value of having these conversations, is just to help people in Columbus County know what one of the most important institutions here is up to. So Marc Murphy, thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. And you can find archived episodes of On the Record right now on our website, nrcolumbus.com.